I really do love playing that video as we get started with our latest edition of the Lennox on Baseball live stream podcast. And we go 3 days in a row here. And with sort of doing things a little bit differently, I feel like I've got to not reintroduce myself, but reintroduce of what the heck I'm doing here. Hair is on fire with what we're trying to do here. But years ago, it was Royals in the World Series, and I said to myself, you know what? When the regular season ends, I'm going to chronicle each day, and I'm going to start with the offseason. So it was day one of the Major League Baseball offseason. Then we got into spring training. Then we got into the season. Then we got into the next postseason. And for the most part, not every single day, but a majority of those days, since the Royals beat the Mets in the World Series all those years ago. It seems like it was 15 years ago. Anyway, so I started doing that, and I picked up some traction in ESPN hallways, ESPN radio in Bristol, Connecticut. I'd get hey, what day of the, baseball season is it, from colleagues and stuff like that. So anyway, started this baseball season off trying to get back into that podcast world so I could do my part to add yet another podcast, another baseball podcast to the world. I'm not sure if there's more podcasts out there in the world right now, books on the Kennedys or books on the Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers. But added this at the beginning was just the audio version of, recapping each day. West Coast games, different things like that, giving you just a number or two from a game. I sort of fizzled it out. So I'll give you a Seinfeld reference. And thinking about this the last couple of days and putting it together of, Kramer and Newman having the I'm drawing a blank here, but the Merv Griffin show set put up in Kramer's apartment, and then they pull the plug on it. So I pulled the plug on it a couple of times. Hopefully with this, I'm going to start going forward. We're going to do some interviews, going to do this on a daily basis. Last night kicked it off with my first live stream podcast interview in quite a while, and couldn't have had a better first guest. It was Eric Sherman, author of 8 titles, 8 books. He was at the ceremony. We talked about the ceremony that he was at Citi Field with the Mets retiring his number 16. Dwight Gooden's number 16 on Sunday by the Mets organization. They'll retire number 18 for Darryl Strawberry, I think early June. Anyway, Eric was a terrific guest. We are up now with our live stream. We're live on X. We're live on the Lennox on Baseball podcast Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well. So continuing to build, hopefully to continue to build the audience as well. So started last week with my opening segment calling it That's Baseball, from Ernie Harwell and his definition of baseball that he wrote way back in 1955. And then with that poem, he also put it as part of his Hall of Fame induction speech when he received the Ford C. Frick Award many, many years ago. And John Sterling 2 days ago, there are T-shirts made that say, "That's Baseball, Susan," referring to his broadcast partner on Yankee radio broadcasts all these years, Susan Waldman. So That's Baseball starts with, boy, what a few days it's been. We go from the Rangers promoting one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, Jack Leiter, who I'm very excited to see him make his big league debut this Thursday. That'll be tomorrow with the Rangers in Detroit to wrap up that series against the Tigers. Jack Leiter will make his first big league start. I'll have more on that at the end with our Sugar's Random Thoughts. But our That's Baseball segment, Ken Holtzman, Carl Erskine, and Whitey Herzog all passing away in the last couple of days. And I go back to the 1980s. I don't hide my fandom. I grew up as a Mets fan. So in those mid-'80s, it was the Mets Cubs. It was the Mets Cardinals. And when you talk about the Cardinals, you talk about Ozzie Smith. You talk about the speed, Willie McGee, Vince Coleman, Jack Clark, that one power hitter in the middle of that lineup. But then you talk about the manager, who was right up there as well, Whitey Herzog. Always knew the name Whitey Herzog. Out in St. Louis visiting family in the mid-1980s, first in 82 and then in 85. An aunt, long-departed aunt, sending me World Series championship teams when the Cardinals beat the Brewers in the World Series in 1982, and always knowing Whitey Herzog as a kid. So out there in St. Louis for a wedding one year, we're in a barbershop, and it's a free haircut if you get the Whitey Herzog crew cut. Hey, I walked out of the barbershop with a free haircut. But I got to thinking of Whitey Herzog yesterday after learning of his passing, and one of my favorite authors, and he's got baseball ties, Pat Jordan. So I've interviewed Pat Jordan in the past when I was at MLB Advanced Media, when he did a story for on Tom Seaver, who actually was a very good friend of his. They grew up down the road from where I live in Connecticut, in the Greenwich, Connecticut area, and they played basketball against each other during the offseason to stay in shape. So Alex Belth, years ago, put together a book that I have on my bookshelf behind me on the different writings of Pat Jordan. Pat Jordan, a tremendous writer. So in 1992, Pat Jordan wrote an article in the LA Times on the King Rat, Whitey Herzog. At that time, he was a member of the Angels organization. So during his career, and so I went back to some notes that I had recorded, reading Alex's book and reading Pat's story on the King Rat, Whitey Herzog. So in 72, Gil Hodges dies, and the Mets have to replace their manager. Yogi Berra ultimately replaces Gil Hodges. Many thought that Whitey Herzog should have got that job. So it's one of those things that you learn years later, that this guy in the 1980s that your team, my team, was going up against didn't have a lot of positive things to say about the White Rat. That's what I referred to him as. That's what a lot of people refer to him as. So passing yesterday, went back to my notes from Alex Belth's book and Pat Jordan's article from the LA Times from 1992. And that's the one note that I came away with. But also, Whitey Herzog, when he was a player in the minor leagues for the New York Yankees, and then he got in the Yankees organization, he was a very good friend of Roger Maris. And one of the things from Pat Jordan's article was that it was Whitey Herzog, Billy Martin, and Mickey Mantle drank for 3 straight days after the funeral of Roger Maris. And I guess we could say that's baseball. So redoing this now, not recapping every game, not giving you, hey, this guy went for 4 and this team's won 7 in a row, and the White Sox still aren't playing well, and they're not playing winning baseball. We'll touch on some of those things, but just going to hit on a couple of them and have some observations along the way. So recapping what is day 20 yesterday of the Major League Baseball regular season, Orioles win again, 11-3. Gunnar Henderson, big game at the plate, big night at the plate, 3 hits, a home run, 3 runs batted in. Now, yesterday also coming out, the Orioles, a tip of the cap to the Baltimore Orioles organization and whoever put together the creative promo that's out there in the social media world. It opens with Cal Ripken Jr. at a desk, at a shortstop position at Camden Yards. Brendan Hyde and David Rubenstein, the new owner of the Orioles, are standing at the railing in the Orioles dugout on the first base side. Gunnar Henderson comes up, and they're like, hey, you're going to tell him, as Cal Ripken Jr. is part of the Rubenstein group and the new ownership. And, Gunnar Henderson jogs out the shortstop and lets Cal Ripken know that his new office, his new position with the organization is upstairs, not at the familiar shortstop position for Junior. So gave you that in a nutshell. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. If you're a baseball fan, you've probably seen it already. And again, tip of the cap to the Orioles organization for putting that together, because it was terrific. How about the Cubs and Diamondbacks last night? 23 runs, 26 hits. Not a good night if you were on the pitcher's mound for the Cubs or the Diamondbacks. But in that game, Cubs 6-run, fourth inning, and then scoring more runs in the 7th as they got 5 across in that inning. But big game with that one. Big offense. Again, 23 hits, 26 runs. Cubs, Ian Happ, grand slam, 3 hits. Ketel Marte, top of the lineup for the Arizona Diamondbacks, continues to produce as well, as he had 4 base hits along the way. How about the Mets winning again? How about it? Break up the Metsies. They've now won 3 in a row. They're game over 500 for the first time this season. They've won 3 in a row, 5 of 6, 7 of 9, from 0-5 to 9-8. And watching them, Red Sox, Yankees, most nights, whatever is available on FS1 or Fox or regional coverage on the MLB Network. The Mets right now, all of a sudden, different guys are contributing. It's getting a little warmer. So the bats are starting to come around a little bit more. McNeil, Lindor, players like that. But, just watching that, it's funny when you watch a ball game, and I'll get into the Red Sox in just a moment, as they lost the next innings to the Guardians on Tuesday. Kenley Jansen blows his first save, but when you can do the little things, makes it that much easier, and it usually leads to winning baseball. Certain teams right now just aren't doing those little things, and you can see it. So Braves last night in Houston, you still have a problem. 6-13 on the season, 4-8 at home, not taking advantage of a lot of home dates early on the schedule. So the Braves win a ball game, but they lose Ozzie Albies for at least the time being, as he's going to go on the injured list. Braves won that game last night, 6-2 against the Astros. And thinking about the Braves right now, Albies on the DL, Strider is gone, or the IL, I should say. Strider is gone for the year, and there's just it's next man up, yes, but it's just things are going on right now with the Braves. They've got a winning record, okay, but how many sort of bumps can they take with losing key players in there? And with Strider out, saw it over the weekend, and he's still in the minor leagues, and I give him credit for going out there and pitching well in his first couple of outings at the AAA level. But Bryce Elder is still in the minor leagues right now for the Atlanta Braves. That's a pretty good option to have, considering he was an all-star last year in the National League. Really came onto the scene and did very well for the Braves in 2023. So the White Sox, glass half full, did not lose on Tuesday. Glass half empty or glass half empty and shattered on the floor. The White Sox do have games today, 2 of them against the Royals. The Phillies, 5-0 victory, and we tip our cap. Bryce Harper off the interstate. Bryce Harper, 2 hits, including a home run. He had a double, 3 runs batted in, his average up to 215. But we tip our cap to Phillies starting pitcher Ranger Suarez, who finished what he started. Complete game effort. The second, number 2. We can count on one hand. We can count on 2 fingers. 2 complete game efforts. The other, Ronel Blanco of the Astros, throwing the no-hitter a few weeks ago at home against the Toronto Blue Jays. But Suarez, terrific, as he went the full 9 innings, walked 1, struck out 8, threw 112 pitches. If you see a pitcher, you read the box scores the way I do every day, and you see pitchers, 95, 100 pitches, 85, 90 pitches in 5 innings, just not economical, and you're just wearing your team down. As we see this in baseball, and it's present day, and we have to live with it, but you're into your bullpen, 5th, 6th inning every single night. It makes it hard. So Ranger Suarez, not only 5-0 shutout win against the Rockies on Tuesday, but boy, does he save the bullpen, not only for that night, but for today, and really, if you look at going ahead into the weekend as well. 3,296 in Oakland to watch the Cardinals beat the A's on Tuesday night. That's the number, 3,296, the paid attendance. Sugar's Random Thoughts. I mentioned Jack Leiter earlier, and I mentioned during our live stream podcast and our interview with author Eric Sherman at the end of it on Tuesday night that I was going to try to track down Al Leiter's high school baseball coach at Del Barton High School in New Jersey, and we're going to talk with Bruce Chattel at some point next week. So I reached out to Bruce last night. The last time I reached out to Bruce, I had a college baseball game broadcast to get ready for, and I reached out to him to talk about one of his former players, who I believe was at North Carolina, a pitcher, and within 10 minutes, Bruce called. Bruce emailed me back last night saying, hey, we can get something scheduled for next week to talk about Jack Leiter and his debut, and Bruce is actually his high school coach at Del Barton High School, New Jersey. Bruce said, I'm heading out to Detroit, so he's going to be in attendance for Jack Leiter's appearance on Thursday against the Tigers in Detroit as they wrap up that series. But Bruce Chattel had not only Jack Leiter, and they won a state championship in 2019, and go figure, but he also had Anthony Volpe, the star shortstop and young star shortstop for the New York Yankees. So that's pretty impressive that you have Volpe at shortstop on your high school team, and your ace is Jack Leiter. And Bruce Chattel next week's going to say, hey, from that 2019 team that also had Chris Christie's son on it, I got 2 guys in the big league. So looking forward to seeing Jack Leiter make his first big league appearance with the Rangers on Thursday. Went the college route, 2 years at Vanderbilt under Tim Corbin, and then going and being drafted by the Texas Rangers organization. So looked it up. Last year, we all know, I'm sharing with you, 4 teams last year. 4 teams, 100-plus losses. White Sox, Royals, A's, and Rockies. It's possible that 3 of those 4, I don't think it's going to be the Royals, and I'm hoping that it's not the Royals, but 3 of those 4, as I mentioned, White Sox, A's, and Rockies, those 3 teams absolutely could be looking at 100-loss seasons again this year. Also in the standings today, mention the Red Sox and losing. Kenley Jansen blew a save in the 9th inning, and then the Guardians got their runs in the top of the 10th inning. 10-7 was the final last night at Fenway Park. So with that loss, the Red Sox have lost the first 2 games of that series. They're back to 500 at 99. So are the Cardinals. And for those 2 teams, with great expectations from the fan bases, with those 2 teams, doesn't it feel like it's every night is a must-win situation for those two teams. It just struck me with that, with how things played out from the last couple of days, and those teams are both at 500, and both franchises right now, both fan bases for both of those franchises right now, just have to be looking at basically of how do we move forward, how do we climb, how do we continue to build with the young talent, but be patient. Very difficult to do. So that's our wrap on day number 20 of the Major League Baseball regular season. Also throwing in a little That's Baseball and our Sugar's Random Thoughts as well. We'll hit you up on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.